question is, are you ready?
What do you guys want to talk about?
Let me talk to you. Let me talk to you. Yeah.
Throwdown Nation, we are live with episode 70. Somehow we've gotten to 70 of these things, of the Throwdown with Matt. It's a Wednesday. We are live on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter/X, Facebook, and Twitch. And tonight we are throwing down with Alabama-based Joe Crowe. Joe wears a lot of hats in life. He is the manager and announcer for Spartan Pro Wrestling. He is a writer/editor, and he also has some high-level affiliation with the hugely successful Atlanta-based pop culture convention DragonCon, handling the American Classic Sci-Fi track at the con. So how are you doing tonight, Joe?
I am tremendous. If I was any better, I'd be two nerds.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So for those of you that are watching this live, if you have any questions or comments, throw them in the chat, and we'll either as we go along or at the end, we'll do a viewer Q&A session. So, this conversation's probably going to go all over the place, but this is mostly a wrestling related live stream. So how long have you been a fan of wrestling, Joe?
Oh gosh, since I was, I'm gonna say maybe 10 or 11. In Alabama, we had Continental Championship Wrestling.
Yep.
And that was what got me started. And then immediately from there, WWF of that time period. So we're talking early 80s. And then when I discovered the NWA, I thought, well, this is like the WWF, but better. And then I shuttled back and forth. And I ended up like tape trading. That was a thing back in the 80s and 90s. I did a bunch of that. And it's since early. I think what it was is I loved comic books and sci-fi TV shows and movies, and wrestling, pro wrestling is like a live action version of all that stuff.
It is.
In a lot of ways.
Absolutely. And, I have found that there is a ton of crossover between sci-fi fans and wrestling fans. I mean, it's amazing how much crossover there truly is between those particular genres.
I have multiple times. Well, here's I don't know if you can see. I wear superhero ties to every show, and I have way too many in a good way. So I wear superhero ties. I end up talking about superhero stuff with wrestlers backstage. One time I got into an argument about who is stronger, Superman or Hulk, with another adult. And he was a wrestler. We were backstage, and that was the serious discussion we were having. It was tremendous.
So what conclusions did you come to? Who is stronger?
It's Superman,
Yeah,
and he's not here to say any different. So it's Superman. But
gotcha.
I mean, you know, the solar energy and the granted, yes, Hulk is got. He's got the. He always says the madder he gets, the stronger he gets. But Superman doesn't have to be mad,
That's true. He's just
and
strong.
so he's cool and collected while Hulk is losing his marbles, you know. And so there you go. That would be my answer.
Very good. Very good. But yeah, you know, I've been a fan of wrestling since I was around 11. And you know, my earliest memories of wrestling were as a kid in Florida, watching Florida Championship Wrestling with Gordon Soley doing the commentary.
Oh,
And my my earliest feud that I remember was Dusty Rhodes and Kevin Sullivan.
oh
I
wow.
mean, so this was back early 80s, you know, and, you know, going down the Joe Crowe rabbit hole, I ran across your read through of Hong Kong Phooey with you doing the the Dusty Rhodes voice for Scatman Crothers, and
That is.
I about came unglued. That was hilarious.
Thank you. It's I of course I love American Dream Dusty Rhodes. How do you not?
Of course,
How,
yeah.
how do you not? And then in just messing around one day, I attempted to do the voice and I decided I sounded good enough. So now I've just been doing it ever since. The other wrestlers will say, "There's the guy that does the Dusty Rhodes voice," and so it's gone beyond me. But I felt like when I was doing it was Read Across America Week a couple of years
Yes.
ago when I did that video. I opened up the book and then I realized, oh, Hong Kong Phooey is he is an African American singer and showman, and I thought it seems weird. I don't feel like I want to try to do his voice, so
Yeah.
I did an old white dude in American Dream Dusty Rhodes, and that seemed okay. That was more fun for me.
I can see that. So, what was the first live wrestling show you ever attended, and what do you remember about it?
Okay, two answers. First answer is the first time I saw WWF was on closed circuit. It was WrestleMania 3, and they showed it in a movie theater.
Mm-hmm.
And so let me correct myself. They showed it in Ed Auditorium,
Mm-hmm.
the Boutwell Auditorium in Birmingham. So it was a wrestling crowd, wrestling everything, the feel, the look, the vibes from the crowd, except we were just watching it on a screen. And so I watched WrestleMania 3 like that. And then a little while later, a wrestling show came to my little town of Clanton, Alabama, my hometown. And my biggest memory of that was there was a wrestler named the Beastmaster.
Okay.
And he brought in to the ring, you know, like Jake the Snake did, like Coco Beware did. This guy brought what appeared to be a cougar or a bobcat to the ring. And he was on a leash, and the bobcat looked furious. And Beastmaster himself looked more scared of the bobcat than his opponent or anybody else. And the bobcat led him around the ring a few times, and then he handed it off to somebody. And then, you know, wrestling happened after that. But oh my gosh, live bobcat. Just
Wow.
I don't know the man's story. I don't know anything about anything. That's my very first live wrestling show.
Wow. When you said when you first said he came to the ring with a cougar, I was sitting there thinking, he came to the ring with an older lady on the make. I mean,
Yeah. Well, no, that was later. That was
yeah,
they've all done that since then.
yeah. I was going to say, what's so unusual about
Yeah,
that?
what's the big deal? Saw that last week.
Uh, so, how do you feel like all of the various aspects of what you do coexist and correlate? The wrestling, the writing, the editing, the Dragon Con stuff. How does it all sort of dovetail into Joe Crowe?
Thank you. That is a crazy good question. I started out as a journalist at the Birmingham News in Alabama, and I was an editor, and I wrote a few things there. But before then, I wrote in my spare time, for fun.
Right.
And the internet had started up by then. This is like early 2000s. And so I had tons of stuff on the web of, humor articles. And I worked for a website in early 2000. And that through them, like I founded a sci-fi website. And like everything in the year 2000, it all went, pretty quick. But I got a press pass to go to Dragon Con that first time. I'd already been a few times just as a fan, but then I got that press pass and I thought, I've got a tiny bit of power. This is nuts. And so I liked it so much that I kept going back even after the that one job I had, and I ended up getting on board with programming people and doing like live panels and hosting things. And so it was kind of, I always was a wrestling fan in the background.
Right.
And I would write stuff about wrestling or for a wrestling website or two here and there. And then an indie wrestling fed started up in Birmingham, Alabama. And I pitched a story idea to my newspaper. How about you send me to this thing and let me cover it? And so I met tons of indie Alabama wrestlers at that thing. And the owner of the company, Wrestle Birmingham was the name of it. She said to me, well, we were talking, she said, I really, the one thing I need for the show is I need a ring announcer. And I said, I think I can do that. I'd seen it enough times. Yeah. And so from that point on, I was the ring announcer for this company. And they did a few more shows and I was there. I was just in hog heaven. And it was crazy fun. And now I felt like go back to your original question. I think getting up in front of people and talking about nerdy stuff and then getting in front of people and talking about wrestling is kind of the same thing.
It
and
is.
I had done, like in the 90s, I attempted poorly stand-up comedy. So I had already gotten, my feet wet. So talking in public about things I love, they all kind of smoosh together. And so I don't really think of really wrestling and nerdy stuff. It's all one big fun thing to me.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. So tell us a little bit about the history of Spartan Pro Wrestling.
Okay. My first longest running regular gig has been with Spartan Pro Wrestling. And oddly enough, it started out with me at working a freelance job at the post office over Christmas. And it was, unbeknown to me when I took the job, it was an overnight gig from 10 o'clock at night until dawn. And another guy working there was a promoter at he was about to start his own wrestling company. His name was Johnny Slaughter, and he started Victory Championship Wrestling in an even smaller town than my hometown of Clanton, in Munford, Alabama. And so that's where VCW was. And every week, every 2 weeks, we put on shows in the Munford Armory. And it was just the old schooliest of old school stuff, a mix of long-time Alabama indie folks, Southern indie folks. And from after we'd been in Munford a while, and I think we were kind of outgrowing Munford.
Mm-hmm.
And there were some, like, we were at the local auditorium, like the local auditorium in Munford, and we ended up moving out of Munford and going to Gadsden. Johnny Slaughter and his buddies, his cohorts, found a spot in Gadsden, Alabama, inside the Gadsden Mall, where an old movie theater had been. You know, like remember the old 2-screen movie theaters?
Oh yeah. Back before all the multiplexes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was an old 2-screen movie theater place, and Johnny Slaughter and his crew, the VCW, the Victory Championship crew, bought this place and refurbished it and turned it into Spartan Pro Wrestling. And one of the theaters where the movie screens is the Spartan Academy. And then the other one is where we do the show. And we've got the one set up just like a little show studio, like NXT does.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one is for the training academy, which they run multiple times a week. And then you graduate from the one to the other. And we've been doing consistently for 3 years. It's been a few solid years, and you know, crowds, it's obviously with indie wrestling, gosh, you got to grab them, you know, you got to grab them and keep them is a constant concern. But Spartan Pro Wrestling is still like we work with other federations. And I'm told by people that are a lot more experienced, who've been in the business a lot longer than I have, that people don't really work together. Federations don't really work together often, but we are changing that. And a lot of federations, we bring them in for spotlight matches, and we exchange talent.
Mm-hmm.
And in my experience, our locker room is just one of the most supportive, one of the I'm going to say it's the most supportive, most energetic locker room that I've ever been in. Like,
Mm-hmm.
everybody is focused on pushing Spartan wrestling, and you know, also their own careers, but
Right.
in pushing Spartan wrestling to the next level.
Well, when I had Big Bad Wolf on a while back, he spoke very highly of Spartan. So
I love Big Bad Wolf. That dude. Okay. Every time before the show, multiple times before our shows, if Wolf is there, the other wrestlers are like, well, what's he going to try to do tonight? And then we'll see him practice it before, and the other wrestlers are like, I don't know if you should. And then he's like, I'm going to try it anyway. And he does great at whatever thing. I think every time I've announced for him, he's tried a new move in every match. And I'm pretty confident about that, but you got to go for it, man. He
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
at the Spartan Academy run by Joshua O'Hagan. Wolf is Wolf is one of the many guys who've come through there and have took the ball and run with it after that.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, it sounds like he's got the hold my beer mentality.
He does 100%.
Yep,
That is
absolutely.
100% right. Oh my gosh, he is a character.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Really enjoyed him. I was noticing over on the YouTube chat, we've Billy Sellers has had a couple of comments. Remembering when the WWF had animals in the ring.
What a
And
crazy time that was.
oh, for sure.
Billy, right there with you. I love the extra stuff, and I didn't realize it then, but really what they were doing, and they may not have realized it, they were making their action figure look cool. To
Yep.
me, that's what adding an animal was.
Oh
Because
yeah.
you want a Jake the Snake figure, you get the python with it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that's what
you get the
happened.
accessories.
Yeah. I feel like when you're in the wrestling business, think about your action figure. That means
Yep.
get colorful gear, get get a cape, get a mask. You don't have to have a mask. Some people
No,
do.
but
I'm not opposed. I'm not.
but something that sets you apart.
Yeah. Because they animals certainly set people apart.
Oh, for sure.
Jake the Snake Roberts has a million stories about having to deal with snakes, and I feel like
Mm,
maybe you should have known that going in, but
yeah.
maybe with a name like Jake the Snake, the notion that he had such trouble with the snakes, maybe you should have been Jake the Hamster.
Maybe.
Jake the Hamster Roberts. That would have worked out a lot easier, I think.
Yeah.
And of course, there's video of the British Bulldogs' dog Matilda attacking the heels
Yeah.
and pooping in the ring. It's just, I think they should have more animals in wrestling.
I can't argue that point with you at all. One point you were making is about cooperation between companies, and something I am really digging right now is with this new regime in WWE with Hunter running the company more or less. We're actually seeing some collaboration between WWE and other companies. We're starting to see that crossover with TNA, and all of that is just a beautiful thing because we're back sort of in an environment where really within certain parameters just about anything is possible, and that just makes it exciting. Getting to see dream matches that you didn't think were going to happen be a possibility is just so cool.
When Jordan Grace came into the Royal Rumble last year,
Hmm.
was it last year when she came in wearing the
I,
TNA championship?
I think it was last year.
Because Mickie James came in the year before
Right.
as the TNA champion, the TNA women's champion. But yeah, Jordan came in, and I thought, what is happening?
Yeah.
I can't believe this is happening. And you never would have seen that level of cooperation
Under
decades ago.
Vince. Yeah.
And like apparently in the early 80s it did happen, like with AWA and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
that's long gone.
Right.
And everybody recognized that WWE was the only game in town since the 2000s, but lots of people tried,
Right.
with TNA, and somehow through fire and brimstone, they, to pardon an expression, to TNA has survived this whole time. And so many cool people have come through there. And I love that they're at a point, and WWE is at a point where we're not trying to compete for ratings. We're on different cable channels.
Right.
We're on different streamers. Why not bring everything together? So a WWE fan may be watching Netflix now and go, or the CW where the NXT airs now, and go, well, I've never heard of TNA wrestling. And all you got to do now in 2025 is Google it, and there's TNA wrestling. So they can see Masha Slamovich and Jordan Grace and everybody else. It's just a whole other universe. That's the way I looked at it. Because comic books, DC and Marvel.
Oh, yeah.
And it was two different universes. You like one, you sample the other one, and there's tons more new things to enjoy. And that's how I look at WWE and TNA.
Yep.
When on TNA, when all the NXT guys were coming in a few months ago, blew my mind. Like it was the rookies or the women from NXT, and that was bonkers. And they're not doing it to get an inroad into their own WWE career. They're doing it because it's cool. It seems like it's just a neat thing to be a part of, to witness.
Absolutely. And there's rumors going around right now that Joe Hendry may show up in the Royal Rumble this year, which that would be awesome.
I love Joe Hendry. I keep meaning to do the Joe Hendry turnaround when I come out, and I always forget to do it. And I go, oh, because I'm half there with his name. But I keep forgetting to do it. But I love that guy. He seems to be a, gear wise and stuff, it's kind of a no frills thing. But then watch him for more than 2 or 3 minutes or
you're
check
captivated.
him out Google him for more, the music videos that he has done.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh. But
so creative.
So creative. The video that he did that I laughed at the hardest was when he made a big deal about his latest video was going to be about Ryan Nemeth. And it started and it said, he's Dolph Ziggler's brother. That's it. End of video. Amazing. And of course, Ryan Nemeth was in the ring throwing a fit. Just classic. Absolutely great. Now, I would love for him to be in the Rumble.
Oh, I would too. What cracks me up are looking at some of the videos from when Hendry was still over in the UK on the Indies over there, and him coming out to these videos that typically are mocking his opponent, and watching the opponent trying not to break character and laugh.
Oh my!
Because I just,
it's the best.
Hilarious. It really is.
Trying not to break character and trying not to bust out laughing is the hardest thing. And I have given up. And now the other wrestlers know how easy it is to break me, and they just do it anyway. But 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 whenever Hendry, I've seen a couple of the videos you're talking about. Whenever Hendry does a video, I always look if the camera points to his opponent, and they're usually doing they're trying to hide it. But it is what I hope is that Hendry makes the videos but doesn't show them to his opponent beforehand.
Right.
So it's new to them
to get the genuine reaction. Yeah.
That's what I hope. I don't have confirmation on that, but I hope that's what he does.
Yeah. So, I guess delving over into just general pop culture. What are you watching or listening to right now? Anything cool? Because I'm always looking for recommendations.
Oh gosh, I let me see. My teenage daughter, she's not a teenager. She is 21. She's 21. She makes fun of me because I like Chapel Roan.
Okay.
Chapel Roan is a pro wrestler in musician form. She has different costumes, arena style pyrotechnics, and the whole deal. And she's a pop singer, and
Hmm.
I love that. Those songs are great. Pink Pony Club is it's about performing on a stage, and I'm like, oh, okay, I get this. And my daughter would say, "Stop! No, you don't." But
Yeah,
I love Chapel Roan. I love. I'm always looking for something, a new streaming series to watch.
mhm.
But I still go back to the classics. Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Supernatural,
Oh yeah.
because there's so many years. And Angel, we just rewatched. Me and my wife Steph. We there's we're in an age now where everything is available,
Hmm.
and so it bleeds together some because you don't know what's terrible and what isn't. But the good part is just try it. With
Yep.
streaming stuff, you can try something for free, and if you don't like it, great,
Move
watch
on.
something else.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I have went down a rabbit hole, an extreme rabbit hole with on Max, the DC Comics' animated movies,
Hmm.
because when they come out, I've seen them every now and then. I'll buy one, watch the DVD over the years, but now they're all at my fingertips, and I can watch them anytime I want. So my recommendation to you is The Doom That Came to Gotham. It's pretty new. It's a Batman cartoon, and it's
Okay.
Batman combined with H.P. Lovecraft. So
Oh,
it's
neat.
Batman in the with like it's like the Cthulhu mythos, but
Oh, that's cool.
attached to Batman.
Huh.
It's great. Green Arrow is in it. The demon Etrigan, Jack Kirby's big yellow demon guy, he is in it. And it's so fun. It's just like an alternate Elseworlds version of Batman where he meets this eldritch demon who has taken over Gotham City. It's awesome.
Wow. I will definitely have to look that up.
So let's see, Chapel Roan and Batman cartoons. There's so much new stuff that's out. What We Do in the Shadows is one of my favorite sitcoms.
Hmm.
There's 6 seasons of just silly vampire stuff. That is top notch. And Star Trek Lower Decks is some of the best Star Trek. It's if you take out it's a little 30-minute cartoon, but if you take out the funny parts, it's still a good Star Trek episode. But with the funny parts in, it's hilarious. And as if you're a Star Trek nerd, you have to watch Lower Decks because there's so many Easter eggs and callbacks to the entire history of Star Trek. So Lower Decks, highest recommendation.
Awesome. Awesome. So, which televised wrestling promotion currently is your favorite and why?
I think I watch more than any other, like the bulk of a show, like because I'll come in like probably we all do, and you'll watch a clip of a match or a clip of a
Right.
chunk of, but NXT, generally, I watch from start to finish
Mm-hmm.
every single time. And it depends with Raw and SmackDown and AEW. But NXT, consistent. That seems to be my go-to, the one that I'm watching the most of.
Very good. Yeah. I've been, for a while, I really wasn't watching much NXT, but since Ethan Page showed up, I've been back to watching it because I was a huge Ethan Page fan, and I felt like he was criminally underused in AEW. They should have
When
strapped a rocket to his back and pushed him to the moon. So
when he was, but in addition to NXT, like throughout COVID, what I did, there was so much content coming out from AEW, like AEW Dark
right.
and Dark Elevation. I watched that start to finish,
Mhm.
and I'm not just saying that because a pretty solid number of people that I've announced for made it onto the AEW Dark shows, which was super cool, to
Oh
see
yeah.
them. And I'm like, hey, I know that guy. That's super fun. But that was my go-to. And when Ethan Page started doing, well, his whole thing with Matt Hardy was all on AEW Dark, I think.
Right.
And that was every week they were doing something off the wall, nutso. And there was one time when Ethan Page, major heel when he turned fully good and was helping Matt Hardy, and then he did the Jeff Hardy dance. I thought, well, this is it. This is the funniest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But yeah, when it seemed like they kept putting him in groups, and he would kind of outshine everybody else in the groups he was
Yep.
in. But then one thing I love in 2025 or anytime recently is when I don't know a surprise is coming. And I had
Mhm.
no idea about Ethan Page. I
Right.
was not watching it live. I was watching the next day, and there comes Ethan Page. It blew my mind, and he was so. I don't want to say impactful because that was where he was for so many years, but
Right.
he was. It
Yeah.
was so neat to see him on in the big leagues.
Yep. Absolutely. And and anymore with the dirt sheets and everything, a true surprise is so hard to pull
Yeah,
off. I mean, but yeah, I agree with you. The Ethan Page thing that flew under the radar, and that was fun.
I love that. I don't want to know. And
Yeah.
I say that having been on the wrestling internet for decades.
Yeah.
And I mean, I followed it every wrestling website I could get my hands on back from whenever they started till like I subscribed to the Observer for a while. And I always wanted the inside scoop. I wanted to know what was coming until it got to the point where I'm like, well, I want to be surprised too. And then I
Right.
realized maybe it's me. Maybe I need to maybe I need to dial it back a little bit. So even today, now that I'm on wrestling shows, which it's honestly I've been doing it for years, and it's still weird to go. I'm on pro wrestling shows, but and I love that. But I always tell bookers, other wrestlers, don't tell me what's going to happen. I don't want to know. Just let it hit me naturally, like it does to the audience, and that works out so much better for I think all the performances really.
Absolutely. So, being, to one degree or another, kind of an industry insider, so to speak, what what do you feel is most important? A wrestler's in-ring skill or his or her abilities on the microphone?
I'm gonna say, since this is like a Coke and Pepsi question.
Exactly.
It really is, and I think it's tough. It was like a Superman and Hulk question before we got started.
Yep.
I'm gonna say I'm gonna say talking on the mic, and here's my justification for it. Talking on the mic can hide how bad you are in the ring.
Yep.
Lots of talkers, not great when the action gets started, but the talking, the character, the interaction, the personality saves them, or makes them. You watch them for that part of the performance versus now excellent wrestlers are fun to watch, but if they can't talk or they don't
Exactly.
talk, and I don't mean don't talk like Sabu. I mean
Right.
don't talk like can't talk,
Right.
like are bad on the mic.
Yeah.
It's like I think that's like one benefits the other. You got to have both ideally. But if you had to only have one, I got to say it would be being good on the mic.
Yeah. The gift of gab. Yeah.
And maybe I'm a little biased because I can't wrestle a lick, but I can do what I'm doing,
Yeah. But no, looking at it from sort of one extreme to the other, using as an example of one, you had MJF, who is an amazing talker, and when he was first getting started, his wrestling wasn't that great, but he has put in the work,
Oh yeah.
and he is pretty close to being equally as good in the ring. And then to the opposite extreme, you had Will Ospreay, who was just insanely good in the ring but not much of a talker, but he also has put in the work and he is great on the mic now. So
He is. It was him who was convincing Buddy Murphy to go, Buddy Matthews, to
yeah.
go solo
Yeah.
last week or so. That speech that he gave him, and then the speech. But no. To your point, Ospreay is. I mean, of course, he's unparalleled in the ring action. But oh my
Yeah.
gosh, now that they've let him talk, it's tremendous.
Absolutely. And it's exciting to see the folks that are good in both aspects, because those guys can virtually write their own ticket. I
Mhm.
mean, because I mean, if you are top notch in both aspects, you are gold. I mean,
Yeah, man. It's like for example, nobody really remembers Roddy Piper for his matches,
no.
but everybody remembers him smashing Superfly Snuka with the coconut. That's a very
Yep.
old school reference. Please, kids, if you're watching, Google it after the show. Don't Google it right now. Wait until we're done. But and then Roddy's stuff leading up to WrestleMania 3 when he turned good was mind blowing. But no, he's a talker, but I'm like I couldn't really tell you what his finish is because it doesn't
No.
matter. He's Roddy
Right.
Piper.
Yeah.
And so yeah, some people blend the two, but Roddy unparalleled.
Yep. And circling back a little bit to Jake the Snake Roberts, something I really liked about Jake is his promos. He would rarely raise his voice.
Oh,
He could project such menace by just quietly telling you what he was going to do to you.
yeah.
And that's more terrifying than a guy with the veins sticking out in his head, foaming at the mouth, ranting and raving, screaming, that he was going to murder you and your mother.
Yeah.
I mean, just the quiet menace. And somebody else that incorporated a lot of that also was Raven.
Yeah.
And to me, that's more intimidating and scarier than a guy that's just freaking out. I mean,
I agree.
they say fear the quiet ones. I
Yeah.
mean,
I remember more of I think I loved everything about Jake the Snake. The DDT,
Mhm. Oh yeah.
I think was the DDT for me. I realize this now. I didn't realize it then. Finishers up until the 80s were not the most important thing.
Right.
Like a lot of people didn't have just one go-to finisher, and sometimes you wouldn't see whatever their big move was in a match. But I want to say Jake with the DDT was one of the first ones where the match was leading up to the DDT. He built the match toward smashing your head in with a DDT. And even though in WWF, he didn't win championships with it,
Right.
when he hit it on somebody, they're out.
Yep.
It was donezo. And that was amazing. Like the rest, there was no rolling around on the mat going, oh, my head hurts. They were unconscious.
Yep.
And I love that about that. But the interviews before and after with Jake, just furious, but never raising his voice. Tremendous.
Yep. Being a Jake Roberts mark, though, it's kind of hurt my heart to see the DDT being relegated to more of a mid-match move now. You don't. I mean, I almost feel like it's disrespecting the move. I mean, because now it's a setup for something else.
Oh my gosh! It's you are preaching to the choir, sir. I don't like it, and everybody. Now it's not as for a while there. Everybody was doing a DDT, and there's other stuff they've worked in now that irritates me just as much, but the DDT that's my baby. That was my favorite. And for it to be just like, oh, he hit a DDT. Well, now he's going to pick him up and do something else. That is definitely frustrating.
Yep. I couldn't agree with you more. So who currently is your favorite wrestler?
Oh, that is tough. And that is a tough one because I said earlier that I guess I watch NXT more often than, or I watch more of NXT than the other shows, but I wouldn't say there's anybody on NXT that I love. I mean, I that I'm just like my absolute go-to every week. Wow. Trick Williams is really good.
Mm-hmm.
He combines the music and the moves and the promo stuff really well. I like him. I like Booker T singing along with his theme at the or doing his own lyrics to the theme as he comes to the ring. That cracks me up every time. I think my favorite right now is, gosh, wow, shut down the whole show. I'm it might be Bailey, it might be Nia Jax, it could be Roxanne Perez in NXT. I think that women wrestlers in the last few years have progressed at a quicker pace than, and I'm not saying it as a comparison. I'm saying that since the women's evolution, the pace at which the women have, the talented women have risen through the ranks and perfected their crafts has been amazing. Because you and I both, I'm sure, in the early 80s, we remember the women that kind of looked like dudes in swimsuits, you know.
Yeah.
It was, and the more conventionally attractive women did not wrestle.
Right.
They were not. They were there for catfights or you know, that kind of thing. But that wasn't. But now they've smooshed it all together, and the complete package is around. You know, who is my favorite? And it's not even like one show is my favorite. I guess it's a combo platter of lots of, hey buddy, lots of little favorites.
Yeah. And like you know, I'm really liking the fact that they are now treating the women wrestlers on an equal footing with the male wrestlers as athletes and not as, you know, divas or, right. During the Attitude Era, it was all just basically TNA, you know, for lack of a better way of putting it. And
I remember, again, I went down a rabbit hole and watched some like Attitude Era stuff a few weeks ago, and even at the time, I remember going, "This isn't really what I watch wrestling for."
No,
I'm not a prude, but like I don't watch. I don't watch movies for the sex stuff necessarily.
Right. Yeah.
What I mean is, if I want to see whoever I'm interested in a sexual way to be dressed in a certain way, I don't go to pro wrestling for it.
No.
I don't go to cartoons for it. I don't go to broadcast television for it. So see, and I got, even then, you're not going to see whatever X-rated thing you think you're going to see. It's broadcast television.
Yep.
So the fix was in from the start. Ooh, is she gonna take her top off? No, she's not.
No, she's not.
The answer is no. It was always no.
Yep. And it was never gonna be anything but no.
Exactly. But today, women are, and I don't even like women when women's wrestling, when they do like boyfriend girlfriend storylines anymore. That to me seems too old school. I'd rather, I like the stuff with women on all the shows where they are just trying to win championships, just like the men. And I love that they're not doing stuff like, this is the first time a woman has main evented Raw or SmackDown. Now it just happens every other week.
Yep.
I love that.
I do too. I do too.
And I've seen other wrestlers. When I've talked to wrestlers, they are male wrestlers. I will say they look at move sets and they are inspired by women wrestlers now as much, and maybe more so than dude wrestlers, than male wrestlers. I remember there was a very old school wrestling guy in Alabama who one time we were sitting around, he told me his favorite wrestler that he emulates in the ring is Becky Lynch. And this was an old Southern dude, you know, and he was getting moves from one of the top-notch women in the business. And I love that.
Very cool. Very cool. And you know, I feel like in that aspect in particular, the business has come such a long way, and it's such a good thing, you know.
Yeah. It there's room enough in pro wrestling for everybody.
Yep.
Wrestling can be, I'm preaching to the choir, to you, obviously, and probably to the people watching this, but wrestling can be anything you want. Anybody can be a fan of it. And anybody can do it and perform it. No matter your skin color, your gender, your whoever you love, it does not matter. In wrestling, everything is wrestling. And it's kind of it's just, that's part of the fun, is everybody in the ring with everybody.
So, do you have an all-time favorite match as a fan? Is there one in particular that just rings your chime?
I think I can not take 6 hours to come up with one like I did my favorite wrestler. I have a couple. Overall, the Royal Rumble match is my favorite thing in wrestling, because it combines seeing a whole bunch of people. It combines introducing you, the watcher, to new people. Like if you're a casual viewer who only knows, for example, John Cena or Roman Reigns, and you tune in for the first time to the Royal Rumble, oh my gosh, there's 28 other guys that you've never heard of. So they inject you all the way down the rabbit hole in just one match. And of course, over the years, historically, the guest stars, the new people coming in, the old people coming back, you know, you never know what's going to happen. Some years have been not great in the Royal Rumble, but the years that are, when it is on fire, it is the coolest show, the coolest match. And I say all that to say that Royal Rumble 92, when Ric Flair went from number 2 to winning the thing, is top 2 favorite matches. And I think favorite to me sentimentally is still the match that I saw the first time I went to the live show at WrestleMania 3, or the live on closed circuit show, Ricky Steamboat and Randy Savage.
Oh yeah.
WrestleMania 3.
I mean, yeah. You know, probably my favorite Royal Rumble moment, and I can't remember which year it was, but it was the year that Mick Foley came out in all 3 of his personas. You know, came out as Cactus Jack, came out as Mankind, and then came out as Dude Love. I mean, that was beautiful.
I forgot all about that one. Now I want to go back and watch it. That's one of my favorites too, because he took advantage not only of the rules of the Royal Rumble, and also it was perfectly. I mean, those were 3 individual characters that he was doing all at the same time.
And very different characters. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I loved when he was Dude Love
Yeah.
briefly. Hilarious because he did not break character. The women that he came out with, one was his wife.
Yeah.
Tremendous. And it was such an old-timey 80s type of character because that's when he invented it, when he was a kid. And to be able to do the wrestler he invented when he was a kid in live action as an adult, tremendous.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I think my two others that are just on my match Mount Rushmore from back in 1989 at a WCW Clash of the Champions show. There was an I Quit match between Ric Flair and Terry Funk.
I watched that live on TBS.
I did too. And that was a master class in storytelling. That was a beautiful match.
Up until when Terry Funk had came out and attacked Rick when he won the title from my favorite, Ricky Steamboat. I did not know who Terry Funk was. But the ensuing time introduced me to Terry Funk. And that match blew my mind. For one thing, I could not believe I found myself cheering for Ric Flair. How did that happen? I hate Ric Flair. He's the worst. And yet, there I was. I absolutely dug that. That is 100% one of my favorites too.
Yeah. And another one was at Mania 20, the three-way between Benoit, Hunter, and Shawn for the title.
Yes.
And, I'm somebody, I can still enjoy a Chris Benoit match for the wrestling and for his abilities in the ring. I can separate his resume of work from how the man ended up.
Yeah.
I can still enjoy watching Chris's matches. Just on their merits as a wrestler.
That is an interesting point because as you were saying that, I was looking back and I don't know that I have watched a match of his since the whole thing. I know that on Chris Jericho's podcast, he got together with a bunch of guys who knew Benoit, and they did a series where they just talked about his career. And that is important. And his career was tremendous. There was no reason for him to have gotten as far as he did.
Right.
And it is unfortunate how it ended. But yeah, his matches were, because he was like a combo package of Arn Anderson and well, he had kind of the terrifying delivery when speaking also. There was so much good that came out of Benoit's wrestling career, not his not the rest of it. But yeah, I have not watched. And you can, they're still out there on the YouTubes. But yeah, it's difficult to separate the art from the artist. Right. Sometimes you can, sometimes not so much. Like just in the last couple of days, like news broke about Neil Gaiman, who has been a beloved nerd author for decades. And they're like, well, it turns out he's a weirdo, but was that all you had about? I think I interrupted you, but yes.
Oh no.
Benoit,
yeah.
I remember when it happened live, I was going, well, why is Shawn Michaels taking his spot away? I remember thinking that. He inserted himself in that match, and I thought this is just going to lead to Benoit losing, and it didn't.
Yeah.
It led to Shawn and Triple H
Putting him over.
helping Benoit put together a bigger show, a bigger match than it would have been just Benoit and Triple H, which that would have been great too. Or Benoit and Shawn would also have been. But the three guys are so different.
Oh, yeah. And I feel like to some extent that was sort of a turning point in the maturity of Hunter and Shawn as well, that they were finally willing to put somebody else over other than their little clique.
The putting people over clean seemed to be an issue with them.
Yeah.
And I remember that is the thing that turned me off about DX in general. I think as it was happening, in retrospect, I look back and go, yeah, they were pretty cool. But even at the time, as I really thought, dial it back some, dudes. If it ruins of course, in WWE/F, you had a firm hand on the steering wheel.
Right.
So they could only go so far. Shawn and Hunter could. In WCW, it was a madhouse. So
the inmates were running the asylum.
Yes. So it was much worse what you were saying with Hall and Nash over in WCW.
Oh, for sure.
And even when they would lose a match, they would do the NWO gang attack at the end, or in one of the most infuriating things I've ever seen. I remember there was an NWO pay-per-view, and the Steiner brothers beat Hall and Nash for the championships. And the next night, Nash just said, "That didn't count. I'm taking the belts back."
Yeah.
And I was outraged. And it was one of those, evil general manager things. You're fired if you don't give me the belts back. So the Steiners had to do it. But why even have them win in the first place? It was like a lot of people are familiar with the term dusty finish. It was like that, but it took 24 hours instead of 5 minutes.
Yep. But yeah, that and the finger poke of doom. That was
I was so mad at that too. And this is the thing. I don't ever want to be the kind of fan who just sits. You've seen them. I've seen them. Now I've seen it at live shows who sit and do this.
Yeah.
When you're watching
the
curmudgeons. And you can be a curmudgeon when you're young or old. But like when I watch NXT and I see people, even if everybody's standing up and they're standing there going, "Come on, dude. You were at a live NXT show.
Lighten up."
I mean, enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
I can't be the guy who just yells about everything all the time.
No, life's too short.
Life is too short, and wrestling is too cool to be that guy. And certainly over the years, I followed and read all the internet stuff and watched YouTube videos of all these guys with the critiques. But man, I just love doing it, being a part of it, watching it. I'm in. Otherwise, I'll do something else.
Absolutely. So, do you, by any chance, collect any wrestling merchandise? And if you do, what are some of your favorites from your collection?
Figures. I don't have as many as I want. I used to have. I've got I went through a phase. I call it. I called it my little eBay problem that I had for a while, and I wasn't really going back and collecting older wrestling figures, because I was such a stickler about it. I was like, that doesn't look like Billy Gunn. I don't want that.
Right.
But then when the modern era of figures came around in the last 10 years or so, I got so into the WWE series before where they are now. Like, anyway, Mattel, I don't know where they were then, but those figures are tremendous. They went through all federations. There were Midnight Express action figures, Bobby and Stan, and I had to get those.
Oh yeah.
And those are one of my prized guys right there. And there was a Captain Lou Albano figure with the little rubber band in his cheek.
Oh yeah.
And I must say, I think my favorite figure though is George the Animal Steel with hair, with his body is furry.
Oh, yeah.
And that is tremendous. Don't paint hair on George the Animal Steel.
No.
And his tongue is green. It's amazing.
Yep.
I love now today that wrestling fans are making or it appears wrestling startups are making their own figures. I love the small batch little companies that are making wrestling figures. Like I think Zombie Sailor is one of them, and of course, Wrestling Heels and Faces. They made a figure of CM Punk's dog that I think has just come out.
Oh, Larry.
Yeah, no, Larry has a figure now.
That's awesome.
And of course, Zack Ryder.
Yeah,
and I'm going to remember it. Matt Cardona.
Matt Cardona. Yeah, he and Brian Myers have that podcast.
Yeah, and the podcast was so big. Now they have their own line of figures. Yeah. And they get old guys who never had a figure or haven't had one in 30 years. They get them a figure, like Slick and Akeem, the African Dream, have their own figures now, thanks to Matt Cardona and those other little companies. I love that.
Yep. Your the Midnight Express set that you were talking about, did it come with a cornet with the tennis racket?
It did not, and I'm still mad. It should have. It came with the robes, and it would take me too long to dig them out. But no, they're in the room. Another time we'll do it. We'll talk about wrestling figures, and I'll bring Bobby and Stan. But I don't know that I know. It may have been that everybody was so mad at Cornette at whatever thing he had done at the time, he never got a figure from WWE. But Bobby and Stan did, and Bobby has the mullet, and it's tremendous.
Oh, that's great. That is really great. Well, we're getting sort of close to the to time for tonight. So do you have any upcoming stuff that you'd like to give some hype to?
Yeah, Spartan Pro Wrestling and in Gadsden, Alabama. We are a nonprofit, and we do free shows now. Our shows are absolutely free at the Gadsden Mall in Alabama, and the last Saturday of every month is our show. I'm the announcer and the general manager at the same time, so I get yelled at for different reasons by all the heels, and the baby faces don't really care for me either. But it's a blast, and I also do a show in Warrior, Alabama called Game Time Wrestling. That is on YouTube. And I'm just the announcer there, but the heels in that federation ask me, well, what authority do you have? And I go, none. I'm just the announcer. And they yell at me for that. Why don't you have more authority? And there's several federations around Alabama that I'm lucky to be a part of. There's Rocket City Championship Wrestling up in Hazel Green, which is close to Huntsville. And I love getting out there and just going to new federations and showing off my cool superhero ties, you know. But
Absolutely.
I'm doing that, and convention season is still a long way away. We Labor Day weekend at Dragon Con, I just set up camp for like 5 days and do nerdy stuff and host and appear on panels, talking like we're talking, and doing Q&As with people, which is just great. But in the meantime, I'm hoping I wanna do. I'm during COVID for the Sci-Fi Classics track. What we called them quarantine panels, and we did stuff just like what you're doing. We just took a nerdy topic every week and just did an hour, like we would if we were at a convention. And we're going to start those back up again pretty soon. There's tons of those on YouTube on our Classics Track YouTube page, and just the connectivity, you know, just sitting around hanging out with the nerd and wrestling community is just the best thing.
I couldn't agree with you more. And as far as what we've got coming up, tomorrow night, the 16th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, I've got episode 71 of the Throwdown. We've got a Florida-based wrestler who is also the newly crowned champion at Pro Wrestling Rebellion, the Element, Shane Evans.
Nice.
And then on Monday, also at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, I've got episode 72. I've got a Denver, Colorado-based tag team called JK Pop, which is composed of Johnny Casanova and Caden Koyama, and they are the current Rocky Mountain Pro tag team champions. And if you haven't ever seen Rocky Mountain Pro, they have a weekly show on YouTube, and they are putting out some pretty good wrestling.
Excellent.
And then next Tuesday, the 21st, also at 7 p.m., I've got episode 73 with Atlanta-based Dante Darko. And Dante he's an accomplished singles wrestler, but he also is in a tag team with a previous guest of mine, Neji Ichiban. They tag together as the Dark Passion Assassins.
I love it.
Yeah. So that's what's coming up on my end. But Joe, this has been an absolute pleasure. I mean, this time has just flown, and
it has.
This has been so cool. And you are now a part of the Throwdown family, and you've got a standing invitation to come back anytime you want. I mean, this has been great. And for those of you that have been watching this live, thank you. For those that'll be seeing this on replays and on clips on the web, thank you for that. If you like what we've got going here, definitely do all that's on the side of the screen there. Yeah, like, comment, share, and subscribe. And I'll be back tomorrow night at 7. And in the meantime, be good to each other.